In the journey towards mastering LINQ in UiPath, we are going to learn filtering data table from basic to advanced. In this video, you are going to learn both the method syntax style and the query syntax style, using which we are going to filter the invoice data using LINQ. We will first learn how do you filter any single column available inside a data table. I'm going to show you the data table, what is your input data looks like, and in that one column only we are going to filter. This will be our very first agenda. The next agenda, we will try to filter two columns, again using the method syntax and the query syntax style both. The third thing, we are going to filter using 3 column or more. So let's begin. To learn filtering, we need some input data. You can see I have this Excel file which contains invoice number, vendor tax ID, invoice item, total and date. Let me first tell you from where you can download this particular file. For this, you have to search UiPath Acme on Google, and here is the link for the acme_test-test.uipath.com. Let me log in to this site. It is going to ask you your email address. I'm going to quickly fill my email address and password. In case you don't remember, click on forget your password, or else if you have not registered, click on register and register yourself. Once you have logged in to the Acme site, scroll down and click on invoices, and then click on search for invoice. You will see this particular page. On this one, you have something called display all invoices. Let me click on display all invoices. And finally, this is the page what you are going to see. Let me go back to UiPath Studio, and here you have something called table extraction on the designer panel. I'm going to click on table extraction and I'm going to click on add new column. Let me select any one of the data in the table. Once you select, it is going to give you a prompt. Would you like to extract all the columns from the table? Simply say yes. Post that, this is how it is going to appear. You need to click on preview just to see how the data is coming. If you see invoice number, vendor tax ID, invoice item, if you scroll towards the right, you have total and you have date. All you have to do here, click on export as CSV. Let me click on this. And then let us save with some name. For example, I'm going to save it as Acme vendor export data.csv. Give any name you like and hit on save. So I'm going to locally download this particular file, save. And here simply close it and just close this. After you close, you get this prompt. You have unsaved changes. Would you like to save them before closing the table scraping? Because we don't need this, we just need that file. So I'm going to hit on no. Go to the location where you have downloaded or saved that file, open that up. So this is the file, how it appears. Let me slightly expand the columns so that it becomes quite readable, and I'm going to put a bold symbol here and save this file. Let me slightly enlarge this text so that it becomes readable. Now what exactly we are going to filter, let me tell you. Here you have something called a total column. In the total column, you have this invoice number and the amount. The amount is written in different currencies. Now what we want to first filter any amount which contains USD. For example, if I ask you to do it manually, you will apply a filter on the Excel file and you will only select which is USD. Now if you see, all the USD values have come. Now this is the same thing we want to achieve using LINQ query. Let's switch to UiPath Studio, and here the very first activity we will drag and drop is the read CSV file and point out to the CSV file. So this is my CSV file. Click on open. After that, let's create a variable called input dt. Hit enter, and this variable is going to store my data table. The entire data table will be stored here. After this, let's drag and drop a assign activity. In the assign activity, we will create one more variable called filtered dt. Filtered dt. Hit enter and ensure you come to variable panel and change the data type to data table. Now let's understand how do you write the LINQ query. Let's click on this expression editor and expand this. Now the very first syntax style we'll be using is the method syntax style. In method syntax style, you start with the variable which contains your data, which is our input data table. Dot, we have to write something called as enumerable. Now let's understand what is as enumerable. Now what is your understanding on enumerable? Enumerable means anything that you can iterate. Enumerable means a collection of data called enumerable, which you can iterate or loop. So now in LINQ query, you cannot directly loop through a data table. You have to first convert that data table into a numerable format or a collection format. Directly you cannot apply. So that's why we have to write as enumerable. Enumerable means a collection which you can loop through. Now just to imagine, you can imagine a collection of integers. The previous video we have seen, it's a collection of integers, an array. Same thing, the data table has to be converted into a numerable format. Enumerable format means a collection. Okay. Now, when you do this, when you write this, what happens? Let me tell you. So this is your data table. When I say input data table, this is the entire data is called input data table. The variable will contain the entire data. Now, when you convert it into enumerable, what happens? The entire data table is going to divide itself into data rows. So how many data rows we have? This is the first data row. This is the header. This is the first data row, second data row, third data row. Like that, it will continue. So these are called data rows. Getting it? So data table is now been divided into data rows, which can be looped. Collection of data rows, which can be iterated. Clear? Now, once you have this understanding clear, let's move on. So we have written what? Input dt as enumerable. So it has converted the entire data table into collection of data rows. Now after this, we have to write a filter criteria. So to filter, we will write where the total value contains USD. That is our main agenda, right? We wanted to apply a filter on this total column. Where the value contains USD, we want to filter only these values. Now for that, how to write? You will write the where method, and there you have to start with a dot. In method syntax, you start with a dot and write the method name called where. Now where, I'm going to open and close bracket. Inside this, I'm going to define my lambda function. Lambda function means you start with function. Everything we have covered in our previous video. Hope you remember that. So I'm writing function, and after that you can define any variable of your choice. So here let's write a proper variable called row. Row means a data row, that entire row I have shown you, right? So it is going to first pick this particular row. Now in this row, I want to filter with the column total. So what I will do here, I'm going to write function row. This is the lambda expression. And then I will write the condition. What is the condition? Row. And then which row? The row contains so many columns. Which column? I want to filter the total column. And this comes as an object. So let's convert this to toString. toString. Clear? So what I'm doing? I'm writing this function row total toString. And here for toString, we have to write some condition. Now you got that value. Now this value should contain, so I'm writing contains. What it contains? It should contain the value USD. Be very careful with your quotes, your brackets. So here what I've written, where function row, this is the lambda function. Here we are targeting the row contains so many columns. We are targeting the total column, converting that to toString and saying it should contain what? USD. Now if you hit on save, there will be an error. What is the error? because it is a data row and your assigned variable contains a data table variable. If you remember, this is a data table variable. Now, how do I really convert that to a data table format? This is a data row, right? So what I will do, I'll write another keyword called to copy to data table. Simple. Now what is happening? The entire expression is now created where it is going to give me a data table format output. So let's understand once again this entire expression. First we have written what? Input data table as enumerable. That means it is converting the entire data table into a collection of data rows. Now I'm writing a filter criteria with the where method, and I'm saying function row. This is the lambda expression which is going to pick the very first row. And in that, it will check in the total column if that value contains USD or not. If not, it will again move on to next row and again see where that value is USD. That is the output will be passed to a data table. And this output is going to get stored in the filter data table. Now let's verify the output. To verify the output, let us write or let us drag and drop output data table activity. Output data table activity, and here in the output data table activity, let's input the filter data table from the previous activity, and I want to convert this to a text format, a string format. So create a variable and I'm going to say text dt, hit enter. Okay, this is a string format. Now let us use a simple log message, drag and drop the log message, and here in the log message let us put input text dt that we want to see, and log level you can keep it as info or leave it as it is. Now let us run this. Now before running, ensure the file should be closed because you are using a read CSV file. Don't save it. So let us save and run this. Now what I'm expecting, when it applies the filter, it should only show me the values which contains USD. Now you can see the execution is completed. Let's go to the output and verify if we got the proper values or not. So if you see invoice number, vendor tax ID, invoice item, total, date. So if you see all the values contains USD. If you see USD, see everything contains USD, 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 USD. So it has filtered our proper data. Now let's see the same thing, the same expression that you have written in method syntax format. How can you convert this to a query syntax? The query syntax style we are going to check. So let me close this and let's go to one more blank XAML file. In this one, let us copy all of this activity, control and highlight all of this activity, and copy this and select this, paste it. By doing this, you can see all the variables, everything has been copied. Now only thing we have to do, we have to convert this method syntax to a query syntax. So in query syntax, how do you write? In that style, how do you write? Let's see it. So let me erase this. Now you remember the query syntax always starts from the keyword called from. You have to say from. This is the very first one. From, then you have to write a parameter. So let's define a parameter called row. You can put any variable of your choice. You can write row, rows, whatever you like, okay, or a variable A, B, whatever you like. So here I'm saying from row in input data table. So this is our data table. Now in the method syntax, we are converting this input data table to as enumerable format. Now here we don't have to do this, simply writing from row in input data table. It is more like SQL. So this is the source, this is where it is coming. So the loop will start from here, row. So it is going to first pick the first data row. After that, we have to apply a filter. So how do you apply a filter? You simply say where, right? And here I have to define the field, right? Which field based on which you would like to apply the filter. So for that, the syntax is pretty simple. You would say row dot, there is a keyword called field, and then within bracket you will say of string. What type? String type. And which is that column? You have to define within brackets. The column name is total. So where this total column, the entire meaning is it is targeting to the total column, row field of string total. So in method syntax you are writing row, in bracket you are writing total, dot to string you are saying, right? Here the style is slightly different, row dot field of string total. After this simply say contains, okay, and here you have to define your condition. So contains what? So our condition is it should contain USD. Simple. And after that simply say it should end with the select, right? So I'm saying select row. Okay, so I'm simply writing select row. Now how do I convert all of this to a data table format? In the method syntax we are writing dot copy to data table, right? Here you should write like this, put a bracket everywhere, and here I am saying dot copy to data table. Clear? Look at the syntax. Pretty simple syntax. Select row starts with from and ends at select, and everything I put in a bracket and writing dot copy to data table. Now if I hit on save, what would happen? This one has been written in query syntax and we are filtering only one column, which is the column total column. Now let me run this. Now let's see if we are getting the same output like the previous one. Okay, now let's click on the output. Now if you look at the output panel here, all these values contains USD, 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 USD. Okay, so we have filtered it and only got the USD. So we have covered our very first agenda, filtering the invoice data using LINQ for the one column. Now let's see the second one, filtering the invoice data using LINQ with two columns. Two columns, how do you apply the filter? Now for this is the Excel file where I am going to filter both the columns at the same time. One is the total column as per the USD and the date column, and the date should not contain a value called 00. So this is a blank value 00. I don't want to see this kind of values. I want to filter it out. So if you see it here, I don't want it. It's not I want it. I do not want any column, anything in the date column containing 00. If you see 00 USD value is there. So I don't want this. I don't want. Now for this, how do you write? Let me show you. So it's a negative scenario. I don't want it. It's not you want it, you don't want it. So first of all, let's see in the method syntax, how do you write it? Okay. So this is the syntax we have written previously and we are going to slightly modify it. Now remember, your filtering is happening in the where condition. Yes or no? And this is the first condition you have written called row total dot toString contains USD. This is your first condition. Okay. Now what you can do it here, just to make it more readable, when your syntax becomes large, you have to write in a way that it is readable. So how do you do that? Let me show you. For example, here if you put a dot, if you hit enter, immediately there is an error. Now in LINQ query, to make it readable, we have something called underscore. For example, I have written dot in the below, it has given error. Now for this, in the method syntax, give a space and simply write underscore. This is very important because if you don't keep your code readable, it is problematic in case in the future you have to come and change. So here if you put an underscore, what happens? You can write the code in the next line. So it understands this is a continuation. It doesn't understand it's a two different rows, it is a continuation. So for continuation, we are writing an underscore, a new learning for you. Okay, so here I have written where condition and this is the condition we have put for the first one. Now what I will do here, there is a dot, right? So here what I will do, I have to write a few conditions in the where. There are two conditions. Okay, so one is this condition where contains USD, the total column, and after this there is a clause you have to write called and also. This is a new learning, and also is the clause you have to write, and also. After you write and also, hit enter. Now below this condition is a negative condition, right? This condition is a negative condition. So all you will do, simply say not row. Which row you are targeting this time? The date column, right? You are targeting the date column. So row date column, the same format, dot toString contains, not contains, so it's a negative one, so it should not contain 0 0 0 0. Okay, and after that copy to data table. You can bring it to the top, or else if you like to maintain a continuation, give a space, underscore. If you write, you can see the error should go not here. Just a second. Let me hit enter. That should be applied for dot wherever the dot starts. For example, here the dot starts. I want to write it here like this. The error has appeared. So before the dot, give a space, underscore. So the error should go. Okay. If not, you can simply remove this and continue here. Dot. Okay. Dot copy to data table. Simple. So you see now it has become slightly readable. Input data enumerable. Here you have put an underscore. Then you have written a dot below where this is your entire where. So this bracket, if you see, if you highlight this particular bracket, this ends here. It got gray, some small gray symbol is there. So this is the entire where condition where you have put two conditions. So this is your first condition, should contain USD. Then you have written end also here in the same line you have to write. For example, if I write it here, you can see there's an error. So ensure end also should continue in the same line. Okay, in the same line it should continue. And below that you can continue the next line, not row date dot to string contains 00. So it should not contain 00 dot copy to data table. Clear? Now let me save it. Now let's go to the previous. We have run it in the previous this one, right? So one of the date was 00. If you see, there was a date called 00 in the previous run. Now let me run it here and you will see that 00 should not be coming. So let me save and run it. Okay. I've kept the Excel file open. Let me close it. Let me rerun this. Okay, so the execution completed. Now if you see, the date column will not be containing 00 if you see it here. Okay, there's no zeros now. So we have learned how to filter two columns using syntax method. Now let's see how the same thing you will write in query syntax style. So this is the query syntax style. So in this, how will you write? So here you have the where row dot field of string, same thing. You will use the clause and also clause. Then hit enter. Then you will repeat the same thing, whatever your this thing is, condition is. I'll copy this, enter, and below here simply I will say not, and then write the same condition. Okay, so keep it proper so that people can read it. So row, and here the column is date column, and the value should not contain 0000, and our code is ready. So let us save it. Let me run it again. Let me show you. So if I run this, that filter value 00 should not come. So if you look at what happened, now you see none of the values, none of the date column should have 0. So you have seen both the queries in this format, in the method syntax format, and in the query syntax format. Now it's time to see the third agenda, filtering the invoice data using LINQ with 3 columns, 3 or more columns. So how to do that? Now for this, I'm going to the very first example for the method syntax style. Okay. Now here, first of all, let us open that Excel file, and I'm going to show you what is the third condition based on which you should apply the filter. Okay. So first of all, let's increase the column size slightly a bit. Okay. And then let me make it bold and slightly increase this size. Okay. So this is the file. Now the third criteria is you have to apply the 3 filters now. In the total column USD, and the date column should not contain 0, and the third filter I'll show you. So let me apply the filter. First we are applying filter containing USD. Okay, and the date should not contain 00, so I'll remove this, and the invoice item should contain only IT support. The invoice item should contain only IT support. So this should be your final output. So let's go to this one, UiPath Studio, and let's add the code. So the code is pretty simple. Here is the copy data table. I'll hit enter, and here let's write. So for this, simply copy the entire line until here and paste it here. And here you copy the end also. It's a matter of copy paste, right? Space and also. And here I'm going to align this under the row, and the column is different here. What is the column name? If you go to the Excel, invoice item. So here simply say invoice item, and dot string contains what? It should contain IT support. So simply write IT support. Okay, so we got IT support. So now you can see everything is done. Simply bring back the copy to data table, or else use a backspace. The delete is not working. So you can see the code is complete now. No error. Let's save this and let me run this. So this time it should give me a very simple, the final output should contain only IT support. Okay, I haven't closed the Excel file. Don't save, stop, and let's run it again. So this time it should only give, so it ran very quickly, and you can see it has given IT support, IT support, IT support, IT support, and only the required data has come. It has filtered the USD, it has filtered the date and the IT support. Now you can see the output, and it is very quick. The execution time is very less. If I go and try to achieve using UiPath activities, you might be using a lot many activities now to filter and get this. Now this become pretty simple, right? Pretty simple one and pretty effective one. The runtime is very less. Okay, the execution time is quite less. Now let's see how the same thing can be done using the query syntax. So now what I need is this name, right? Invoice base item. Okay, or else I can type it. So let's go to the second XAML, open the query syntax, expand it. So here we will copy until here. It's a matter of copy paste. Okay, and also should contain in the second this line, and here should be total. What was the total income? Keep it open. Here is the Excel file. Sorry, what is it? Invoice item. Okay, invoice item. Go here and change this to invoice item. Should contain IT support. Done. Now everything is done. All you have to do is simply save it. It's more than 3 filters. It's 3 filters. If it is more than 3, you simply continue and also here and continue whatever filters you would like to apply. So you must have understood that. Let's save it and let's quickly run it. And let's see our final output using query syntax style. Again, I've kept my file open, same mistake. Okay, so let me stop this and run it again. Let's see the output. So you can see for the query syntax for this XAML, the output has appeared. Okay, IT support. So the key takeaway from this video is the first one, data table, filter one column. This left hand side is the method syntax where you have written the data table variable and written dot as enumerable, wherein the query syntax doesn't use as enumerable. And then we have written dot, and if you have to write a dot in the second line, you put a underscore and continue. But in the query syntax by default, you can write it in this pretty format. So here to apply this kind of format, you are using a underscore where function row total dot string, and we have applied a condition and then finally copy to data table. In query syntax, to do the copy to data table, you put a bracket before from and after the select row and then dot copy to data table. Now the same thing to apply data table filter on more than one column, then you use the clause and also, then you write your set of conditions and then rest of the things remains as it is. And for the query syntax, again you write and also and write the conditions. Here the row dot field of string is slightly different, and here you write row total dot to string. Here you write row dot field of string total, the column name. This is the difference. You can compare side by side and you can take this understanding, and I hope this would help you a lot in your LINQ journey. So let's move on to our next topic. Thank you for watching this video. Please give it a like to this video and do not forget to subscribe to my channel.